One of the writers of the Star Wars Holiday Special was into heavy drug use while writing the special. Who was he and what was his drug of choice? Why did celebrated actor B. Arthur choose to participate in this fiasco? What would be considered the high point of the Star Wars Holiday Special? These and more questions will be answered on
Back Look Cinema, the podcast.
Hi, my name is Zoe. It's spelled Z-O or Z to the O for those of you outside of the U.S. Welcome back, friends. This is the 202nd episode of Back Look Cinema, the podcast, where we take a look back at the movies of yesteryear, especially the movies of the latter half of the last millennium. If you like what you're about to hear, then please tell your family, tell your friends, and tell that loving Wookiee family on Life Day about Back Look Cinema. Now, the last episode I said I would be continuing the Skywalker saga with The Empire Strikes Back, but I've decided to take a detour to a darker part of the galaxy. The previous episode was unusual because I covered the film short Hardware Wars instead of a full feature film. I continue again with an unusual episode because instead of covering a theatrical film, we'll be talking about a TV movie. Instead of covering something that we all loved, that I loved, I'll talk about something that left me extremely disappointed. After Star Wars, there seemed to be an enormous gulf that needed to be filled. Being a child, I had no idea if there would ever be more films or if I would ever get to see it. In those days, access to a home version to a movie was extremely rare, and my only hope of it would be for it to premiere on TV, or if I could get my parents to take me to the theater, if I can watch a re-release. As I mentioned in the previous episode, my parents did give me an audio tape with a heavily edited version of the movie that I would listen to constantly. And we had toys and comics, but nothing outside of that. Little did I know that by 1978, they had already started working on the sequel, but I had no idea. It was 3 years between Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back, but for some reason, it felt like forever. This is to say that I would consume everything Star Wars in the interim. And then in 1978, about 18 months since the film premiered in theaters, right around the time Hardware Wars made a splash, there was the Star Wars Holiday Special. I watched it so that you wouldn't have to. Even though this TV special did not meet the standard that was set by the original movie, it did establish some things to the production and to the lore that's worth noting, as we'll explore in this episode. So let's check it out in the opening credits, the Star Wars Holiday Special from 1978. About a year after the rebellion's victory over the Empire at the Battle of Yavin, the Empire is on the hunt for members of the rebels who have scattered across the galaxy. One of the rebel ships involved in the battle is being pursued by several Star Destroyers. The ship is the Millennium Falcon, and its captain Han Solo and his first mate Chewbacca use all the cunning and tricks and skills at their disposal to avoid capture. Han promised Chewie that he would get them to Kashyyyk, the Wookiee homeworld, so that Chewie could be with his family to celebrate Life Day. Meanwhile, Chewbacca's family wait anxiously for his return, all the while being harassed by Imperial troops. This special was broadcast on November 17th, 1978 on CBS. That's Columbia Broadcasting System in the United States at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Produced by Smith Hermian Productions. 20th Century Fox and Lucasfilm on a reported budget of $1 million. In today's dollars, that would be about $4.9 million. This movie starred, it's not even a movie, it's a TV movie, and it's this bad TV movie star. What's remarkable is that they had gathered many of the principal actors back to appear in the TV special, because George Lucas' conception was he didn't want people to forget about Star Wars. So he's going to bring Star Wars to the people while he was working on The Empire Strikes Back. So that means bringing back Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker, Harrison Ford as Han Solo, Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia Organa, Anthony Daniels as C-3PO, Peter Mayhew as Chewbacca, also known as Chewie, James Earl Jones as the voice of Darth Vader, and this is the first time he's credited as Darth Vader. He wasn't credited in the original release of Star Wars. His name has since been restored. He didn't think it was a big deal, so he didn't necessarily want the credit for Star Wars, because he, like most of the other actors and George Lucas himself, didn't really believe that this would be a big deal. They really thought that this movie was going to fail. B. Arthur as Acomba, and I know her most from The Golden Girls, but she's also been a star of the show Maude. Art Carney as Son Dan. You may have seen him in Firestarter or Last Action Hero, and I covered that movie in episode 57. Diane Carroll as Hermia, which is a holographic. You may have known her as she is a star of stage, screen, and she's a singer and model. You may have seen her in Grey's Anatomy or Julia, those TV shows, or in the film Claudine, where she is most prominent. Jefferson Starship played the holographic band. They are a popular rock band that was most prominent between 1974 and 1984. They helped to define the sound of the mid-70s. Jefferson Starship formed out of the effective dissolution of Jefferson Airplane. Jefferson Starship would endure more changes to the band's lineup and lawsuits, and they were later known as, how I remembered them, as simply Starship. With the yacht rocks hits like Sarah, We Built This City, and Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now. Harvey Korman played Krellman, Chef Gourmanda, and a Morphian, an instructor. So these are three roles that Harvey Korman played, and he did the best he could. I know him most from The Carol Burnett Show on TV, and he's also been in the movies Blazing Saddles and History of the World Part 1. Mickey Morton played Mulatto Buck, also known as Mala, Chewie's wife. You may have seen him in Star Trek, Peter Gunn, or the TV special Legends of the Superheroes. Paul Gale played Attache Cook, also known as Itchy, Chewie's son. You may have seen him in costume on Sigmund and the Sea Monsters, the Bay City Roller Show, or The Lord of the Rings, 1978. Or you would have heard his voice in the Lord of the Rings animated movie in 1978. Patty Maloney played Lampaworum, or it may be pronounced Lampaworu, also known as Lumpy, Chewie's father. You may have seen her in The Addams Family or in Buck Rogers in the 25th Century as Twinkie. Beady, 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 beat. And Jack Rader played the Imperial Guard officer. You may have seen him in Outbreak or The Blob. This movie was directed by Steve Binder and Dave Acomba. Acomba was initially hired to direct, but ran into problems as he was inexperienced with the multi-camera setup. He also felt he wasn't getting enough guidance from the producers, so he left after directing a few scenes like the Jefferson Starship performance and the cantina scenes. He's also directed other TV specials such as Ringling Brothers and the Barnum and Bailey Circus, the 116th edition. Barry Manilow, Big Fun on Swing Street. Grand Ole Opry, the 65th anniversary. Aladdin on Ice. The Nick at Night Holiday Special. So after Acomba left, Binder was brought in to replace him. The only support that Binder got from Lucasfilm was a Wookiee show Bible. And I will say that the Wookiees do look good. So I guess there's that. Binder also directed specials like Diana Ross live from Central Park, Beauty and the Beast, A Concert on Ice, Belinda, First Lady of Magic, and Christmas at Walt Disney World. So it kind of all comes back around now, doesn't it? This special was written by Rod Warren, Bruce Vilanch, and Pat Proft. Warren has had his hand in a bunch of holiday specials like the Lily Tomlin special, NBC's Saturday Morning Preview, the Yummy Awards. I remember watching preview shows like this. They had preview shows for like the TV shows that were going to come on in the next season. They would have the TV stars get together and kind of introduce the shows that they would be starring in. They don't do that anymore, but it was a big deal back in the day. And they used to do it for the Saturday morning cartoons. I can't remember if they used live action or if it was animated. It was probably live action, where you would have, I don't know, I guess people come out and talk about the cartoons that was going to come on Saturday mornings for the next season. And I guess in this case, they presented it as an award show. So yeah, that was something that we did back in the day. He also wrote something called the Eddie Rabbit Special. Vilanch wrote, or helped to write, Bette Midler, The Showgirl Must Go On, the 80th, 81st, and 82nd Annual Academy Awards, and Comic Relief, 2006. I remember Comic Relief. It was one of my favorite things to watch. And then Proft, he's the only person that's actually written like movies, actual stories. So he's written movies like Hot Shots, Wrongfully Accused, and Scary Movie 3. And one name who wanted his name to be removed from the list, but who shall not be removed from the list, is Lucas, George Lucas. He is uncredited, but the concept of the story that focused on Chewbacca's family was his idea. In fact, Vilanch objected because the dialogue would be all in the Wookiee language, and he feared that the special would turn into one long episode of Lassie. Lucas refused to change it. According to Vilanch, Lucas originally intended for this Wookiee family concept to appear somewhere in the Star Wars saga. And we didn't really get to see that. There's some like hints of it in the prequels, but there was no focus on the Wookiee family or Wookiee society in general in any of the Star Wars movies. The music was composed by Ian Fraser, and although I'm sure that there's some of his original music in this special, a lot of the music was just reworked or repurposed from John Williams' original score, which makes sense. But he has done his own music. So, for example, Scrooge from 1970, The Secret of Nymph, or Zorro, the Gay Blade, among others. And this TV special, being what it is, also has kind of a soundtrack. The Welches wrote This Minute Now for Diane Carroll, Good Night But Not Goodbye for B. Arthur, and it's actually a reworking of the famous Star Wars Cantina song, and that song is called Mad About Me. Also, A Day to Celebrate, sung by Carrie Fisher, and that's a reworking of the Star Wars main theme. Chakiko, on the other end, is a member of Jefferson Starship, and he wrote the song Light the Sky on Fire for the band. And that's it for the opening credits. Please check out the shop at backliccinema.com/shop. And now we're going to talk about our favorite parts. So, I guess I'm supposed to come up with a theme for this. The best I could come up with is loyalty, especially family loyalty, because, you know, everybody is trying to be loyal and faithful to the family, especially to Chewbacca's family, for the get-together for Life Day. And then there's, you know, love and persistence and, you know, all the things of that nature. But it's kind of hard to really even care about the theme for a project that was so maligned, so hard to watch, so hard to even appreciate on any level, because it was so disappointing. It was just so bad. This is the part where I talk about, let's talk about my favorite parts of the movie, but really, there really aren't many. There's only one, and I'll get to it. But most of it was kind of hard to watch. The story is that the Wookiees, they have a holiday called Life Day, which is kind of supposed to be a mishmash of Christmas and Thanksgiving. And Han and Chewie are off in the Falcon. Han is trying to get Chewie home, but he's like being shot at by Star Destroyers. He's trying to get away from the Star Destroyers and the TIE fighters. And they're just using recycled footage from Star Wars. There's nothing else. It's not like they had a bunch of Star Wars movies, or not even apparently a bunch of special effects shots that weren't used in the movie. And maybe they took the shots and they reversed the shots so the ships look like they're going in the opposite direction or something like that. But for the most part, they're just using footage that you would recognize if you were one of those people that watched Star Wars like 10 or 11 times, which people definitely did, because then that's one of the reasons why Star Wars was in theaters for so long. This show would kind of go back and forth between Han and Chewie trying to get home, and then it would tune into, or it would switch to Chewie's family, and, you know, kind of a regular family, his wife, his father, and his son. And his son is just being a nuisance, just going around, just messing with people and messing with stuff. And then it would go from every once in a while, Chewie's wife, Mala, would try to contact somebody to try to figure out where Chewbacca was or where Han Solo was. So she's contacting the network that monitors spaceships, or she's calling Luke, or Leia is contacting her. Everybody's trying to figure out where Han Solo is, because Han's not there yet. And they're just kind of telling her, well, we don't know where he is, but, you know, just hold on and have faith. We're sure that Han's going to get Chewie home to you. And then between that part of the story, where the main part where they're showing Han getting away from the Imperials, or they're showing Chewie's family at home doing family stuff, like they're cooking, or they're playing, or they're watching softcore porn, you know, whatever families do. They're showing these skits interspersed with all of this, I guess, family drama. And here's the thing. One of the writers, I think it was Valanche, was concerned about the Wookiees, about how they spoke, and they're basically speaking another language, and there were no subtitles, so we don't know what they're saying. And usually the only way that you know what they're saying is either through their actions or through their contact with other people. I don't think that was the problem with the story. But although I can imagine the challenges that the writers face trying to write a story with no dialogue. So I don't know, maybe that was the problem. I wasn't bothered by the wiki, so I was just bothered by everything else. One of the things that happened is that, well, like one of the skits is basically Chewie's son, Itchy, he goes to like a little table. And it's funny, right? Because the design of the table is kind of very obvious. You can tell it's low budget. So the table itself is surrounded by old style. Well, today is old style. I'm pretty sure in the 1970s it was modern tape players. And so the tape players is kind of hidden into the table, but you can see the tape players taken out. And so if you're paying attention, these are all of these devices that are around the table are obviously tape players. And then there's a part where Mala gives Itchy, so Chewie's wife gives Chewie's son, what's ostensibly supposed to be a piece of recorded material. So she's giving him like a cartridge to put into the device on the table, which is a tape player, in order to watch a recorded piece of entertainment. But what she gives them, this recorded medium, is an actual tape. Like they're not even trying to hide it. It's a tape, like with audio on it. Well, for us, it would be audio, but for the Wookiees, it's like a hologram, but it's still just a piece. It's an undisguised tape. And then Itchy takes the tape from his mother and puts it into one of the cassette players that's around the table and starts to watch this holographic performance. It's like, I feel like they could have did a better job of hiding the fact that it was a tape, or not use actual tape players as decorations around the table. They could have did something different. Like even on Star Trek, they just use these little plastic slates to represent recorded programs, and they would slide the slates into a hole and get their data off the computer. They could have did something like that in Star Wars, but instead they used an actual tape, and maybe they shouldn't have done that. At any rate, one of the skits is this ballet performance from some clowns, and Chewie's son like watching the performance, which was dull and boring. And that was the problem. That was a problem with the entire show. It wasn't the Wookiees. It was like the little skits that was interspersed within the show or the main story itself. Every once in a while, one of the Wookiees would watch something on either a TV or a helmet or whatever they were doing. They would watch it, and it's basically a skit. And the skits are supposed to be funny. They're not funny. They're supposed to be interesting. They're not interesting. The music is not inspiring. It's not, there was none of the skits worked. That was a problem. Or sometimes the skit would be like, for some reason they're showing something that's happening on Tatooine. So there's an Imperial officer. He appears on the screen and he's talking about, well, we gotta do a quarantine on Tatooine. And the next thing you know, we're on Tatooine. And I don't even remember if the Wookiees were watching this event play out on Tatooine, but B. Arthur is in the skit. The Tatooine skit, or it's a cantina on Tatooine. It's essentially the same cantina that Luke went into. Luke and Ben Kenobi, that's where they met Han Solo and Chewbacca. I guess it's supposed to be the same Mos Eisley cantina. And it's being managed by B. Arthur, and she plays this character, the bartender there. And it was the only joke in the whole show that I actually laughed at. So here's the joke. And I guess you could probably count this as my favorite part. The joke is that while B. Arthur as Acmina was managing the bar, she's serving drinks and whatnot, there's an alien that comes in, or a guy that comes in. And the guy is played by Harvey Korman. He plays Krellman. So Harvey Korman goes up to the bar and he starts talking about how much he wants to be with B. Arthur. You know, he's infatuated with her. It's like, ever since I was in the bar the last time and you said those wonderful words, I've been infatuated with you and I want to be with you and all this, that, and the other. And B. Arthur's really not all that into him. You know, she's really not into him that much. And I guess one of the jokes was that she gives him a drink and instead of drinking it like a regular person, because it's not like Harvey Korman is in makeup. You know, he's being himself. So instead of drinking it like a regular person might drink it, he pours the drink into the top of his head. And I guess that's supposed to be funny, but it wasn't. And, but that's not the joke. The joke is that he's super infatuated with B. Arthur. And he says that you said those wonderful words to me. Come back soon. I'll be waiting. And she's, you know, like I said, she's not that into him. And then somebody leaves the bar and she says, come back soon. I'll be waiting. And then you see the look on Harvey Korman's face because he realized that she says that to everybody. He didn't say that. She didn't say that to him specifically. She says that to everybody who leaves the bar. And he realized that he wasn't special to her. He was just another patron leaving the bar. And I found that to be funny. It was the only thing that I laughed out loud in this show, and nothing else was amusing or funny. And I could tell they were trying really hard. There was so much talent behind this, trying to create it and put it together. And it just didn't work. Cause some people were saying like, well, maybe, cause this is supposed to be set up like a variety show. And people were like, well, maybe the Star Wars style doesn't fit what they were trying to do with the variety show. But the problem is that the variety show did not work. The variety show itself wasn't funny. The songs weren't, like I said, great. And that could kill any variety show. Like if you got a bunch of comedians and they're not telling funny jokes, everything will fail. I mean, there was a potential that if the skits that they were doing, if the skits were themselves were entertaining, then the show might have worked. And that was the downfall of this show. And it's like there was nothing that they could do to lift the overarching story. One of the things you learn about Chewie's family is that apparently Chewbacca's father is a freak who watches what seems, it's giving soft porn. That's what it has all of the veneer of a dude watching something that's slightly pornographic. So he's watching this thing and this holographic human woman shows up. And the reason this is significant is because the hologram is telling Chewie's father, his name is Lumpy, that she can be anything that he wants her to be. So the only reason that she's appearing in human form is because that is what Lumpy is imagining. And she's working off of and singing to him, appealing to his imagination. So this would suggest that Lumpy is some sort of a freak who wants to get it on with human beings. And that is the vibe is giving off. And then Diane Carroll, who plays the hologram, you know, she's all sensual and sexual, as sexual as you can be for a TV movie that's made for kids. And then she sings this song that it's not great. It's not a great song. It's like here's the thing. The song probably would have worked if the rest of the show was better. But the song that she sang didn't do anything to uplift the show. That was a problem. There was another bit where Jefferson Starship came in. There's a moment where the Imperials kind of like burst into Chewbacca's family home and they're looking for rebels. So they're going and they're doing a search for rebel paraphernalia. And Mala has this communication device that she's been using to contact like Luke Skywalker, or she's been in contact with Princess Leia. And she doesn't want the Imperials to find that device. And so she's trying to distract the Imperials from searching in certain areas. So one of the things that she does is that she also has a human friend who comes in and brings gifts. And so she sits one of the Imperials down so that he can enjoy her gift. And the gift is this huge holographic box. And so when you open it and turn the controls, you get to see a music video. And the music video is Jefferson Star. Well, it's not a music video. It's a music hologram. And the music hologram is Jefferson Starship singing a song that I didn't like that song either. It was not particularly interesting. The holographic music video was not that interesting. It's like just another miss. But the Imperials seemed to enjoy it. So you had 2 Imperial officers and 2 stormtroopers. I think while all of this is going on, like while they're in the house, Itchy, Chewie's son, he gets another device and he starts to watch cartoons because they have cartoons in this universe. And not only do they have cartoons in this universe, but he's watching a cartoon of an adventure with his father and Han Solo, which also happens to have Luke Skywalker. Now, and I guess after the victory on Yavin, people started writing what would be contraband material of stories of that apparently actually happened to these figures. And I will say that as weird as it is for Itchy to be watching a cartoon with his father in it, that was actually the highlight of the entire holiday special. It's above all my favorite part of this special. And the cartoon wasn't bad. It wasn't great. Well, let's just say it had some issues with logic. But what I liked about it was it had this unique animated style. It was different from the other cartoons that I've seen. It kind of reminds me of this old Levi's commercial where you had this alien warlord or general or something like that, and he was walking by this human, and the alien was admiring the jeans that the human wore. And so it kind of looked like that. There was a lot of motion in it, and it was a beautiful style. The best thing about this cartoon is that it introduced Boba Fett, and people became infatuated with Boba Fett through this special. Unlike in Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi, where like in Empire, Boba Fett only has 3 lines, and in Return of the Jedi, I don't think he even had 1 line. In this cartoon special, he's very talkative. He's a conversationalist. And in this cartoon, Han and Chewbacca are after this medallion for some reason. And the medallion makes Han sick. And Chewie had to hang Han upside down so that the blood could drain to his brain so that Han could get better. That was the cure that this medallion, to whatever this medallion was doing. The Millennium Falcon is stuck on this planet. Chewbacca calls for help. Luke gets into a Y-Wing fighter he's with R2-D2. They go to the planet and they kind of crash land on the planet too. The planet is covered with this weird liquid. And we learn that the front part, the cockpit of the Y-Wing fighter or a bomber, the whole front of it comes off and you can use it as a kind of land speeder. As Luke is traveling, I guess he gets into a little bit of trouble and he's saved by Boba Fett, who's on top of this weird looking lizard. And they go to the Millennium Falcon. Luke steps into the Falcon and he is affected by this medallion and he faints. And he needs to be strung upside down along with Han Solo. And Boba Fett convinces Chewbacca to go with him to go and find a cure. Well, C-3PO, I think he was with Chewbacca. So C-3PO and R2-D2 are together on the Millennium Falcon, or did C-3PO go with Chewbacca and Boba Fett? I can't remember. It doesn't matter. Anyways, they're out in the city. While they're out, Boba Fett slips away so he can contact Darth Vader and says, we got them right where we want them. And they're supposed to be getting something. I think it was that Boba Fett said that there was another cure that would help them get better faster. And then he brings the cure with the Wookiee and I guess C-3PO, if he was with them, I can't remember, back to the Millennium Falcon, and they administer the cure, and they cure both Luke Skywalker and Han Solo. But at the same time, R2 alerts everybody that Boba Fett has been in contact with Darth Vader, and he's not a helper, he's a hater. And so, but Boba Fett is still able to get away. Like I said, there are a lot of logic problems with this cartoon. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it was, like I said, it was the best part of the special. I think what I like, and like I mentioned the animation style, that's probably the best thing about it. From what I could find out, it seemed like they used Boba Fett because since they were developing The Empire Strikes Back, they knew that they were going to be using Boba Fett. So that's why they inserted him in the cartoon special. And I had it the other way around. For some reason, I was thinking that they used Boba Fett because he was so popular from the cartoon special that they decided to make a live action version of him. But the concept of Boba Fett had already been generated. And they inserted him in the cartoon because he was already in Empire Strikes Back. So we get back to the main story, and in the main story, the Imperials, like I said, they're ransacking the house. One of the Imperials goes up to Itchy's room, and he trashes the whole room. And then when Itchy gets up there, the stormtroopers kind of laughing at him or one of the Imperials, they're, making fun of him because they messed up his room, and now he has to clean up his room after they junked it. So as Itchy is he's putting his room back together, back into place, he comes across this electronic device, and he wants to fix this device. So he gets the instruction manual, and it's a video of, once again, Harvey Korman, and he's playing a Morphean instructor, and the instructor is teaching whoever's watching the video how to put the device back together. But the thing about the instructor is that it's glitching, and it's like watching Max Headroom, except a malfunctioning Max Headroom. But the problem is that this performance is not funny. I know Harvey Korman, he's probably trying his best, but there's nothing funny about this performance. A funnier performance that he does is that he also plays the chef gourmanda. So there's one point where Mala, Chewie's wife, she's trying to make some kind of stew or something, and Chef Gourmanda she's coded as Julia Childs. So it's like a Julia Childs type of chef, except it's kind of like a larger alien woman putting this dish together. I think the gag is that the alien has 4 hands. So she's got 4 arms, 4 hands, doing things that a person with 2 hands can't really do. And Mala gets frustrated because she can't keep up with what the chef is doing on television. So she turns off the television. That was almost amusing. Almost. But not quite amusing and not quite funny. It's too many unfunny, uninspiring moments in this special. Anyway, Itchy gets his device working, and he uses the device to engage in some false flag action. So he sends a fake message to the Imperials telling them to either go back to camp or report back to the Star Destroyer, or report back to their base or something like that. So he gets rid of them by making it seem like that they had to go back to base. So the Imperials, they leave the Wookiee home to go back to their base. But one stormtrooper is left behind just to make sure that the Wookiees don't try anything. And that one stormtrooper goes upstairs because he still hears the call for them to return to base. So he goes upstairs and he sees Itchy messing around with his device. So he's caught. Something like a scuffle occurs, but Itchy gets away and the Imperial chases him downstairs. But then just in time, Han and Chewie shows up, and the Wookiees live in these like giant trees, and they're really high off the ground. So like maybe 100 stories off the ground. And there are platforms that are built around their homes that are in the trees. So the Imperial's outside and he's pointing a gun at Chewie's family. And just in time, Han shows up and they toss the stormtrooper off of the platform, and he falls to his death. So Chewie's back with his family. They get dressed up in robes. They somehow transport to the gathering where all the Wookiees are, and somehow Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia show up at this gathering, and Princess Leia sings a song, and she sounds all right. Carrie Fisher wanted to sing the song. She sounds all right. I don't have anything against it. Yeah, I was just glad it was over. So that was the Star Wars Holiday Special. Like I said, it wasn't great, but I felt like since I'm covering Star Wars, I was going to cover this special. I hadn't seen it in a long time. I hadn't seen it since I first saw it when it came on television, and like being kind of disappointed with the whole thing. I don't think I even watched the entire special when it first aired. I think I watched bits and pieces of it. I clearly remember that part when Han came and knocked the stormtrooper off of the Wookiee home. I remember that part. And I remember the cartoon where Boba Fett showed up. But I was probably so bored with what I was watching that I didn't really watch most of it. So this is almost a first watch for me. But still, I've always known that the Star Wars special was bad. It has a reputation for being bad. But I decided to watch it anyway. I felt like it had something to offer. And one of the things that it offered was Boba Fett. The other thing that it offered was a look into Wookiee society. That was, at least, you know, with what the homes look like, the technology they're working with, the costumes were actually really good. So that's another great thing about this special, is that they didn't skip on the costume. Even when they went to Mos Eisley, they had a lot of the aliens that we see in Star Wars were in this special, and those costumes look good. So there were some points, you know, some elements to be commended, but overall it was just so bad. So now that we've talked about what we ostensibly refer to as our favorite parts, let's see what we have as trivia. So this is the top 10 trivia. I got all of this from IMDb. According to Carrie Fisher, George Lucas gave her a copy of this special as a gift for recording the DVD commentary for Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. She claimed that she played it at parties when she wanted her guests to leave. And that'll do it. George Lucas famously tried and failed to buy up all the master copies to make sure it was never broadcast again. Well, he didn't have to worry about that because it never was broadcast again. It later appeared on Disney Plus. I don't know how long it was up there. I remember that it was Like one time when I was scrolling to Disney Plus, I saw that it was there. They had it up there along with some of the other Star Wars TV movies, like the ones with the Ewoks and some other obscure stories. But they took it off. So it's not on Disney Plus anymore. This special has never been released on video, but bootleg videos circulated for years, and the show can be seen all over the internet. Lucas remarked at an Australian convention, "If I had the time and a sledgehammer, I would track down every bootleg copy of that program and smash it." Hey man, I feel you. B. Arthur claimed that she only appeared in this special because her younger son was a big fan of Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, which is to be expected. It's the same reason that Raul Julia appeared in Street Fighters, because his children are big fans of Street Fighter, so he was there. Contrary to some reports, Kenny Baker did not perform as R2-D2 in any part of this show. A remote control version was used instead, which makes you wonder, why did they not continue to use the remote control version in the other two movies? Well, I'm glad Kenny Baker remained gainfully employed. Mark Hamill's face was heavily made up as he was recovering from reconstructive surgery after a near-fatal car accident. It's funny, right? Because when I looked at it, watching this special and seeing Mark Hamill, he did look funny. It was like his face was entirely too sharp or something. It was probably the hair, because he had really short hair in this special, as opposed to what his hair is usually like in Star Wars. It was, at least in the first Star Wars movie, he had a longer hair. So seeing with such short hair, it was kind of weird. The cantina sequence took an entire day to shoot. The actors in alien costumes began to pass out due to the lack of oxygen. Oxygen tanks were provided for them to use between takes. Almost all of the alien masks in the cantina are the exact ones from the original 1977 film, although they were repainted for the special. So that would lend to why the costuming looks so good. The Life Day song Carrie Fisher sings is based on the theme from Star Wars. Fisher demanded that she be allowed to sing in this special, but didn't like the song. So yeah, she like I said, she did fairly well. I appreciated that. The animated segment, produced by Nelvana Limited, which later produced Star Wars Droids in 1985 and Star Wars Ewoks that same year, includes Boba Fett's first appearance. Don Franks provided the voice for Boba Fett's in both the holiday special and the Droid series. It's funny, I used to watch Droids and I don't remember seeing Boba Fett. Bruce Vilanch has admitted that he was using cocaine heavily while helping to write the special. See, there's an explanation. There's an explanation for how this special came together. We see why now. It's all clear. How do we not guess? So that's it for the trivia. Let's see what the critics thought. The critics, not surprisingly, gave it a 25%, and our audience gave it a 25% on Rotten Tomatoes. IMDb Reviews has it at 2.2 out of 10. Decidedly less than 25%. Carson Timar from Buttered Popcorn wrote, "A complete miscalculation on what will interest and entertain the consumer. There isn't a single reason why one should give the film the time of day, and truly it does deserve to be lost how it has been." I can't say I disagree with Carson Timar. That seems to be on point. Bonnie Burton from CNET wrote, "Singing Wookiees wearing Snuggies, Harvey Korman cooking in drag, Jefferson Starship hologram jam band. Why this infamous TV special is so bad? It's great. No, it's not. No, it's not something that's so bad it's good. It's actually just bad. Brad Newsom from Sydney Morning Herald wrote, yes, it features Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, and Harrison Ford, but nobody saw this kidsy TV abomination back in 1978. We're surprised that George Lucas wanted it erased from human memory. Yeah, that tracks. D. Rob Humanic from House Next Door wrote, so astounding in its lack of anything that could be considered reasonably watchable that it achieves something of an unintended surrealist nightmare vision. He's not wrong. Finally, the Star Wars Holiday Special is, as of this recording, available on YouTube. A link will be in the description. It was at one point on Disney Plus, but they've since removed it, as I said earlier. But there is the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special that is still available. Please join me next time when I continue this Star Wars theme with Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, with Jen from My Streaming Bubble. You can follow us on Blue Sky, Threads, TikTok, Instagram, and sometimes Twitter. Please contact us with any questions, comments, or suggestions at fanmail@backlookcinema.com. Please rate and review on your favorite podcast app. And if you're listening on YouTube, please like or subscribe. Leave a comment below. I'd love to know. One last time, if you like this show, then please help us grow by spreading the word about Backlook Cinema, the podcast. Believe me, it matters. I've been Zoe Richardson. Be safe. Share a movie from yesteryear with your family. Hug your loved ones. And if you're going to be anything, be out.